Maple Leafs forever on the Fired Up Network.
Hey everybody, this is Joseph Hasek to the Fired Up Network. Welcome to Maple Leafs Forever Leaf Talk with formerly the Toronto Star, Mark Zwolinzki, and on the phone, because it's early in the morning, it's Norm Rumack, all right? Let's talk about this, the Maple Leafs, and I'm going to go mental for a couple seconds. I am 51 years old. Norm is 70 years old. Mark is 20. All right? So, like,
plus
look.
45.
45.
20 plus 45, yeah.
Yeah, 65. All right. So, this year was the best chance they ever had to get to the Stanley Cup final because they're a home team. They have home advantage. Vegas, Winnipeg, all these teams lost. So, in Game 5 against Florida, they lose 6-1. Jerseys get thrown on the ice and people are burning their jerseys. Then they make a miraculous comeback and win Game 6. Shut out Florida. And Game 7 last night, 6-1. You know, by my math, that's 12-2 in 2 home playoff games. Mitch Marner screaming to his teammates about what? His hair is not even wet. He hasn't even played anything. Austin Matthews, at the end of the game, we had too many passengers. Well, how many goals did you score? How many goals? Where was William Nylander? He scored 45 goals during regular season. Nowhere. Morgan Riley, I don't even see him on the ice. This is the core. The only guy, if you saw the post interviews, who had some emotion, a lot of emotion actually, was John Tavares. So what did they do with this guy last year? He was the C. They took the C off the guy. Oh, you have so much emotion? Let me take off the C off you guys. Now, Brendan Shanahan, I will do it. Since I'm the president of the province of Canada, the mayor-elect of North America, soon to run for the mayor of Maple Leafville, Brendan Shanahan, bye-bye. You haven't been doing anything. You go to work. You leave at 5. When there's games on, you leave at 7:30. Game starts 7:15. Brendan Shanahan, you're gone. Mitch Marner, you're great during the regular season. But when somebody throws you a check, you complain. You complain. You complain. Austin Matthews, get rid of the mustache. All right? Play with your heart. Depends on it. When you play for USA, you give it all. And William Nylander, love you. But when the playoff is, you know what hockey is? You got to check. You got to control the puck. You got to get the puck instead of playing around with one stick. Enough. Good luck to the Maple Leafs next year. Not going to happen till 2084. Mark, go ahead.
Oh, Joey, yeah, it's my only point would be here is that the same thing that Morgan Riley said, I think it's 2 years ago now. He says they just like the soft game. And I think the performance you saw in 5 and 7 here suggests that when another team has them figured out, is checking them, pressuring them, in a way that there's someone on you, you turn your head, somebody's going to hit you. You try to skate, somebody's on you. They do not want that game. They are not physically strong enough to play that game. And that's the problem, I think. I mean, they have the talent. They do try. They have will. They've been at it 9 years now, 8-9 years. And the one thing that stood out to me, and my wife pointed it out to me as well, in the handshake line after the game, Marner was shaking hands with Bennett and a few others. And he was a good 3, 4, 5, even 6 inches shorter than some of them. He looked like a peewee player standing next to giants. Now, try as he might, he can't physically or strength-wise match that. There's no way. The size differential there is real. It's a real deal. So we can get upset, and we damn well should be, over the results and over the failures and over the disappointments. There's more expected of that team. But honestly, here I am talking to you 2 days after our last podcast here, and firmly believed that the Leafs would win the Cup. That did not travel well. And it's come to me in abundant clearance right now that this is a product of the Dubas drafting. I mean, he did draft nice. It fell into his lap type thing, but you've got a Marner, you've got a Nylander, and you've got a Matthews who do not want to play that type of game. They will play it. They will try and stick check in. Marner even threw his weight around, but they cannot physically stand up to a team like Florida where every single guy plays that type of game, is fast, strong, big, and ready to rip, ready to give everything. They'll do anything it takes to win. The Leafs can't. They understand that, but they can't deliver it. And no matter how much wringing of hands we do, how much swearing we do, and how much we want to yell for change, unless you got those kind of horses in your barn, you're going nowhere anyways, not against a team like Florida. So to me, it may sound trivial. It may sound like, oh, we're missing something. We should be talking about all these things that everybody's talking about now. But when it comes down to it on the ice, they're just not physically strong enough within the players that they put on the ice the most. And I think, just for one last example of that, when Seth Jones went around Morgan Riley and scored that goal that was disallowed, there was a perfect example of it. Like, how does Seth Jones come down on Morgan, get around him, get inside position, and cut across the crease and have the goal go in, even if it went in off his skates? That's just pure lack of physical strength and lack of physical will. That shouldn't be happening. That guy should have been ridden outside. Seth should have been ridden outside and into the end boards, taken out of the play. Instead, he went from a position where Morgan had position to taking that position away and establishing himself without so much as a response physically. I don't know how you correct that, how you teach that. That's just an inability to be strong when the time comes and when it's needed most. And I think that's what does the Leafs in every year now, because your best players, the guys who get the most ice time, are those type of players who cannot match up physically to these other teams that are going farther than they are.
All right, so before Norm jumps in, I just want to add one more point. Everything you said is correct, but then how do you say on Game 6 they shut out their opponent in Florida? They shut them out, but at home they give up 12 goals. So this is a flawed system for 60 years. For 60 years.
You look at that game, the Game 6 in Florida. They shut them out, yes. Florida's scoring chances were off the chart, just like they were the now infamous 75 shot attempts in 2 periods, the most by any team this season against any team in the league. That Florida had that same type of game. It just didn't go in for them. This game it did. They scored the game was over in 6 minutes in the second period. They scored 3 goals in 6 minutes and 24 seconds. The Leafs did not get a shot on goal in the first period till there was 8 minutes and 23 seconds left in the period. I think the second period they only had 3 or 4 shots at all.
Yeah.
And then all these goals going all at once. They're just physically overwhelmed, and they don't have a response for that. And I understand, how the hell do you go from Game 6 and into a completely opposite ends of the world performance in Game 7? But I believe in Game 6 that it shouldn't have even gone past Game 6. Florida just did not score, did not capitalize. The Leafs, to their credit, found a way to win. But it was a game they won that probably they didn't deserve to win. And they sure as hell didn't deserve to win that series. So, again, to me, it just comes down to how strong you are on your feet, mano a mano, whatever you want to call it. And that is not something you can teach. It's something that has to happen inside. It has to happen from the top down in the organization. How do we get stronger against these type of teams? Because the Leafs are good until they face a top 8 team. They are not a top 8 team in the league. They wouldn't even be a top 6 team in the West. If they were in the West, they probably wouldn't have got out of the first round if they had to face Colorado or the Blues or any of those other teams. And I think it all comes down to physical strength. I know I'm beating that, but that's to me what the difference is.
All right, Norm, here's your chance. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think they have to rip it up and start all over again. And it sounds like, the feedback from people like Mark and others is it's a question of when, not if. And it'd be interesting to see what happens with Marner. Sounds like he's kind of the way he was talking, like, well, he wasn't sure, he wasn't making any commitment. So sounds like maybe he's had enough of the project. I mean, he didn't say so specifically, but in any case, Mark and Joe both made great points about the lack of physicality from Toronto, and Mark especially about the size-wise. Yeah, I think the Leafs are, they may not admit it, but I think they are physically intimidated by Florida. And I think that happened a couple of years ago when they went out in the second round. And then last year they went out in 7. And Mr. Marchand did his number on them again. Interesting that Brad Marchand stuck up for them after the game, saying their fans are tough on them. But I'll tell you, the last time, I don't know if you remember, Mark or Joe, but the last time I saw Leaf sweaters thrown on the ice was about 20, 30 years ago. And I think it was a playoff series, a best of 5 with Minnesota. And the Leafs also allowed 8 goals in one game. I believe it was against Minnesota North Stars. And I remember it was a big thing then for fans to be throwing jerseys on the ice, but especially in a playoff game. I don't think that's happened anywhere else in Canada that I can recall. Even going back to WHA days, like the Quebec Nordiques, I don't remember seeing a highlight of fans at a home playoff game in Canada throwing their jerseys on the ice. And those jerseys are not cheap. They're what, 150 to 200, 250 bucks each. I mean, even if I was at the game and fed up with the Leafs, I wouldn't throw the jersey away just because I can't afford to. So maybe it speaks to the fan base that they are that wealthy, at least in the lower seats in the Platinums. Well, they are that wealthy.
Yeah.
And,
by the way, Norm, if those are actual game authentic jerseys, they're $400 to $500.
350.
It's right? 500.
$400 to $500 for an actual game type jersey, which most of those people are wearing. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. Well, I think Berube is a good coach, but I think we could read his frustration. It's when a coach says, I don't have the answer, I think he does have the answer, but he's not ready to say it just yet. And I give him credit for, he handled himself with class. And it was interesting, as I said, with Marchand sticking up for the Leaf players, even though he's their number one nemesis. But you get the benefits of being a Leaf player. Everybody loves you when you're going well, and you get, commercials and this and that and the other. But if it doesn't go well, you really take the heat. And
What heat do you take? Like, honestly, it's 60 years.
58 years since a cup, 23 years since a conference final.
Yeah, they've had a couple of conference final teams that were big and strong players. What else do I have to say about Wendell Clark? I have to say anything? No. They had guys who were smaller but tough as nails, like Dougie Gilmore. And they had a great core of 6 defensemen.
You know what I'm hearing, Norm?
Pat Burns' team. So I'm just saying, is like the Leafs have had pretty good teams before under Pat Quinn and Pat Burns. God bless them both. They were just like a little, they were playing against Wayne Gretzky. Well, what teams didn't suffer? I mean that in a respectful way to Wayne Gretzky. To his teams, ask the Calgary Flames about that, right? Or the Winnipeg Jets. So I'm just saying, it's clear as daylight that they have to start all over again. And as Mark was pointing out, you got to keep up with your opponents. And if you don't have the size and strength in a physical sport like hockey, it's kind of like if you have an undersized football team, Joe, in the National Football League. You can get by sometimes with 1 or 2 position players who are smaller. There's a few exceptions who can hit like a ton of rocks, even though they're small size-wise. But for the most part, if you're outsized on the O-line, D-line, linebacker, cornerback, safety, you're not, or tight end, you're not going to win that many games. And I think that translates into hockey.
Okay, hold on. You know what I hear you saying? And this is the only problem. That, yes, I agree with Mark. I agree with you, Norm. But the problem is no heart. They haven't had heart since Wendell Clark, since Gilmore, Darcy Tucker. Remember his eyes, Shane Corson, and all. Those were the biggest guys and all that. There's no heart. So here, final question. I'll go to Mark first, then I'll go to you, and then we'll do a preview of the conference finals. We won't talk about the conference final till we do that show. So Mark, it's May 20th, okay? September 20th. What changes are in the Maple Leafs? Is Brendan Shanahan here? Is Mitch Marner here? Is Austin Matthews going to say, I had enough, I want to get traded? Trade me to the New York Rangers. What do you say?
I think first with management, Shanahan either will not or should not be in his position. I don't think they discard him. I think they shuffle him sideways. One thing, yes, Shanahan's been in the organization 10 years. He's had two playoff series wins, and those were bare 7-game wins. That's not a very good track record. However, the man has connections in the league. He has connections in this community. What he has in terms of experience, knowledge, and wisdom cannot be dismissed as if it's worthless. It's worth something. He can go in and have another position where he doesn't run the show, but he does contribute to it with his experience in that. I think that's what happens. And I'm not saying he isn't dismissed outright, but I think you can look at Shanahan and look at him as a piece you can still use somewhere. Keith Pelly runs the show, as we've mentioned. Now he's the guy who can come in, and make decisions and give direction and or demand direction from the general manager and the coach. And I think what you guys touched on earlier is basically right. Right now, I believe the future of the roster is in the hands of the general manager and the coach. I think the general managers did a very nice job in equipping this team to be what you just said is probably the best team they've had, or the best opportunity they've had, and still came up short. I look at the coach and I'm like Norm. I do commend him for what he's done and for trying to make this team into a playoff style team that he had with the Blues in 18 when they won, which is more of a puck pressure team. Fortunately, this team can't deliver. But I don't let the coach off entirely on this, because in Game 5 and in Game 7, and especially in Game 7, 75 shot attempts against in 2 periods means your coaching plan went out the window. Paul Maurice, for all the blather that they do, mouthing off at the benches, going after the goalie, they did that in the first couple of games. They took out Stolarz, which they identified as the one player who can make a difference for the Leafs in this series. They did the thing that no one else will do. Marchand, Bennett, those guys will do that. Chris Pronger talked about that years ago. What's the thing you're going to do that no one else is going to do that you're going to win the series? That's what it is. He took out the goalie and they go ahead and they win. But they shut that down. They were one of the worst penalized, if not the most penalized team in the playoffs last year. I'd like to see where that sits right now, because they controlled themselves, contained themselves, and just worked the pressure game. They had the Leafs breakout figured down to a T. Every time the Leafs tried to break out or tried to get through the neutral zone, there was someone on them. Berube was outcoached, if you want to put it plainly. And maybe he wasn't outcoached. Maybe that might be too harsh a term. But Maurice had it figured out, and Berube did not have an answer. So these guys were not entirely prepared to succeed. Fine and dandy, move forward. Marner, just the optics of it. People booing him off the ice, people booing him for every shift he took in the last 2 minutes of the game. His comments afterwards, that does not sound like a player who's going to come back. However, the question goes, Marner's been here, 8-9 years, and he's been a near 100 point a year player. How do you replace that? That's not an easy deal. Tavares going to be 36 when the season starts next year. If he doesn't come back for a bargain basement price, there's another guy you can let go. I really have to look at Morgan Rielly, despite the fact that he's everybody's favorite. again, it's difficult to be hard on a guy like that who gets the most ice time and tries his hardest, but he's also on the ice for these types of goals against, and he is not physical enough. And, being outright critical here, he's leading a charmed life here. It's too comfortable, and he can say what he wants, and anybody can say what they want about that, but they need more from him. And the question is, are they getting enough for him for what he's worth? I don't think you can get rid of him pretty easily with the kind of contract he has, but that's another thing to consider moving forward. Every year, you're going to lose 5 or 6. You're going to change over 5 or 6 players. This year, you would have to figure out of the core 4 or 5, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Riley, 2 of them will probably not be here. And if they are, then they shouldn't have been, because you cannot repeat this formula of players and expect anything more to happen. But then again, what are you going to get back for them? And what are you going to look like moving forward with however you're going to do? Are you going to trade? You're going to get free agents? You're going to promote somebody? I don't think they have. I think they have good players in the minor leagues ready to come up. But are they the type of players that we see in Florida? No, they're not. Or at least they haven't developed into that yet. Now, they have had a tremendous success with Matt Nyes. And whoever handled Matt Nyes in the offseason, and Matt handled it himself a lot, but he became a better skater. He became more physical. He understood what his role was. And then you see how talented he really is with his hands, because he scored some beautiful goals, and everybody says, oh, it's his hands. It's his hands. Well, somebody developed that. So somebody's got to know what they're doing within the hockey operations crew there to work with their best players and to draft just bigger players. There's lots of players out there who are big, strong, and want to win. That's the last thing I think they have to pursue. So management, yep. I think the future of this team is going to be more directly involved with or more directly determined by the general manager and the coach. And Pelly will, I hope, have a very direct approach, an iron-fisted approach, and a no-nonsense, no BS approach. Because, again, you cannot have this insanity where you just keep filing this type of lineup forward and move forward with it just because you're selling the place out. It's not going to work. I don't think they're sitting there and saying, yeah, we're satisfied because we're making money. I think they want to win. They just got to discover right now who they want to put in charge with that. It starts at the top, and then it moves down and forwards from there. But I do think the guys most directly involved with the team, which is the coach and the general manager, will have the biggest say in how this thing what this thing looks like in next September.
All right, Norm, you close it out, and then we'll close out and then do another show with conference final preview. But go ahead, Norm, you have the final word.
Yeah, Mark, you made some great points about Peru. The only thing I wonder about is if maybe those opening 8 to 10 minutes where the rink was tilted. I mean, there's no escaping that. But I kind of wonder if that's the Leafs kind of, that Game 7 mentality with all their failures in the last decade of this group kind of creeping into their head is like, wonder what's going to happen tonight. That's why I think they need a major turnover, because this group has got that kind of mentality. And I kind of wonder if Berube had a game plan that was different than the way things worked out. I don't know that, Mark, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that I kind of wonder if the Leafs go into meltdown stage psychologically and just, geez, we've had so many failures before. I wonder what might go wrong tonight. So,
well, it's a lack of leadership on the ice, and that's absolutely right. Yeah. If they can't figure that out, the players got to get, it's ultimately it comes down to the players. Brian Burke always said it, there's general managers and there's this, that, and that, and this, but the coaches and that, but it's the players who make us look good or bad. So your point's well taken that, Matthews or whoever leads that team clearly isn't doing a good enough job with it in this type of situation. And that's the reason they took the C off of Tavares, because they just could not win with him as captain in the playoffs. So they tried a different route.
But who is the leader? Who's the leader?
But that's it.
Like
Who is?
You know, and then Matthews is not. Who's the real leader of this team?
Well, they don't have a Messier type leader. They don't have a Marchand type leader. I mean, somebody who's, and maybe they do. Maybe they talk and they go at each other. They can't just sit there meek. I'm not going to try and paint them out as a bunch of, players who just aren't going to sit there. They're going to take it. They're not going to fight back. But clearly there is, they say they're a tight-knit group. They say this, that, and this. But how does that translate onto the ice? That's all I want to say, because I've cut Normie off here and he's making some good points. So sorry, Normie, go ahead. But it's just, it gets us all frustrated.
Yeah, and let's remember, they fired a coach last year. So it's like, it makes me wonder, well, how many coaches are you going to go through? And when you have to start having like a merry-go-round of coaches, then tells me, there's something wrong with the chemistry and the leadership in that room more than there's something wrong with the coaches. I mean, Berube did win a Stanley Cup, so he must have some kind of inkling of what it takes to win. But you could read the frustration. Again, I admire the class he showed in not unloading on anybody, when he couldn't give an answer to, what happened Game 5 and Game 7. He says, well, I can't explain that. He probably can explain. I'm sure he'll do that adequately with Keith Pelly when they chat, whenever that is, about what he thinks is wrong with the team. But I think Mark and Joe, you've all kind of hit the nail on the head. So I'll just say that I assume, I have no doubt Berube will be back, but with a much different looking team. And as we've all discussed here, size-wise, but I think, I harken back. I'm actually, I know I'm on the phone for this segment. I'm wearing the Maple Leaf jersey from '67. And, that team was about.
Do you want to throw it on the ice?
No, it's too expensive, Joe. I can't even afford to throw my socks on the ice. Never mind.
Nobody wants your socks.
Not a point, no, that's pretty funny.
Joe, I wash them every week.
Yeah, once a week he watches socks. That's what you learned. Okay, go ahead.
So, anyway, the '67 team, I know most people can't relate to that because they weren't around then, but the '67 team almost missed the playoffs. And they went on a 10-game losing streak. Well, they made the playoffs. They beat there was only 2 rounds, but and when I hear people knocking the '60s Maple Leafs because, well, they only played 2 rounds. Well, keep in mind, the 2 rounds they played were against teams that were half to 3/4 of each roster. If you look at the Montreal Canadiens, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, half of each roster were future Hall of Famers. So I wouldn't say it was easy, even though it was 2 rounds. And they didn't have the physical training they had back then. They didn't have the medical technology back then that they have now. So the circumstances they played under were a lot more difficult. So when I hear people saying, yeah, but it's 4 rounds now, 2 rounds is nothing. No, 2 rounds wasn't nothing if you watch that hockey. But anyway, I'm just saying the Maple Leafs in the '60s were a very good team. But I don't know if they were the best team in the league when they won those 4 Stanley Cups. And that was about heart and determination, a tough coach. And they knew, strength in goal and strength down the middle, down center. And, they took hits, but they gave hits. And they could play the skill game. They could play the physical game. If you wanted the rough stuff, they had Orland Kurtenbach and Eddie Shack and other guys. If you wanted the skill game, they had Davey Keon, who could skate as well as any Montreal Canadiens player. And I don't think they win those cups without Davey Keon or without Sawchuk and Bauer in '67. So the point is that sometimes you need to have the size, but you need to have the heart and the determination and the grit. And when you have a Bob Bond scoring a goal in overtime on a broken ankle, you refuse to have the leg fixed up. He had it frozen instead. That's the kind of character. That's why I still have a Leaf shirt from the mid-'60s and the shirt from '67, because those guys had heart, determination. Didn't matter if they were undersized or not as good skating wise, but they had the heart, determination, and the character. And I think sometimes when I'd be interested when you guys make your final comments to see if you agree, Joe and Mark. Sometimes there's so much emphasis on stats that they overlook, as Pat Gillick said, the eyeball test. I want to see how guys respond watching a game when they're down 10-0 or when they're up 10-0. You know, do they kind of drift or coast, or are they still playing with that same intensity? And that kind of eyeball test, I think, is necessary. And I hope it's still being used by the Maple Leafs, because someone should have seen that in this core four, that as skilled as they are, and they're highly skilled. And as Marky pointed out, you know, if you're going to leave Marner go or let Marner go, you better find someone else who can get you at least the regular season points so you make the playoffs. I mean, let's face it, you got to make the playoffs, and there's a lot more parity now in the National Hockey League than ever before. So you can't just, you know, say, see you later. And, well, who are we going to get those scoring points that Matthews and Marner produce? So there's a lot of questions to be answered. And again, I just hope that there's more emphasis put on character and personality in a future, you know, drafting. And it's not to say everybody, but there's obviously in the core four, there's something missing there, and the leadership. And I think Mr. Marner should have saved his rant that we saw, you know, on video several times, should have saved that for the locker room. And maybe he did, to be fair to him. Maybe he did have something to say in the locker room. It's unfair to assume without knowing. But if you've got leaders and the rest of the team isn't responding, is like, I don't know, when you say you've got passengers and you're scoring yourself is down, boy, it's that dressing room is not in good shape right now. It needs some major, figuratively speaking, surgical work to repair what's going on right there. So sorry for the long rant, but I think I covered all the bases there I needed to cover.
It's okay. I was cleaning my socks. All right. Yeah. So Mark, you close. I actually know what to do. The Maple Leafs, you know what they're going to do? I agree with Mark and with Norm. They got to get bigger. They got to get tougher. They got to get a heart or whatever. But Maple Leafs, they got to get a new jersey. That's all they care about. The new jersey. That's it. We're going to make billions of dollars. Who cares? There's people throwing jerseys on the ice, and Maple Leaf Square was packed up. It's going to be packed up next year or whatever. When is Toronto? If this happened in Montreal, let's compare Toronto, Montreal. Mark, do you think people in Montreal will go to the game and waste $1,000 a ticket?
No. Well, if this happened in Montreal, the coach would be fired this morning, possibly the GM too. None of this sits or rides or flies in Montreal. None of it. They understood what they had here in a rebuilding team, but in Montreal, that is. But the fans, I mean, they'll tolerate a rebuild for a while. A lot of them won't. It's Stanley Cup or nothing in Montreal. And it is here too. Like, we can't sit here and say, no, they don't want to win the cup. But there's been a fundamental lack of vision or wrong vision or misguided vision here about what it takes to get that team to the cup. Too many players. Yes, we're passengers. The whole team was a passenger yesterday. That was shocking. See, that's the type of thing. You get outscored by 5 goals and outchanced by some immeasurable margin on your home ice in Game 7. Something is going to get its head cut off, and if that's in Montreal, and we expect that to happen. What I would love to see, I know it's not, and maybe it will happen by the end of today. I don't know, and we don't know. But when they do have their next media availability, I would love to see somebody say, yeah, we sucked here. We didn't do this. We lacked this. Let's see somebody really tell the truth. It's time for that. Not, oh, we're shocked, we're disappointed, and we try our best, we're not going to give up. I expect you to do that. That's what hockey players are. Randy Carlyle used to say, oh, please don't tell me hockey players work hard. They work so hard. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what they're paid to do. You and I are going to have to work hard if we want to get paid. We all do. So don't give me the BS about, the standard cliche, and they're not even cliche, but just standard answers, political, rhetorical bullshit. Let's see somebody take some real responsibility. Let's see somebody take some real truthful looks at what's going on here. And I imagine they'll mirror what we're saying here. I don't think they're going to do that because you don't want people to sit there and say, we just paid $500 for a ticket in the nosebleed seasons to see something like what we're talking about, a gutless or a lack of heart team. Why did we spend our money? Now that, if that would translate into a half-empty rink next year, which it won't, but if it did, then we'd see some action too. That's what should precipitate. It won't. And we love hockey in the city. Let's face it, we're talking about it ad nauseum here. So you want to see results. You want to believe. You want to see a different result. You want to see something that you can believe in. That is an intangible right now. It's in the hands of a few people. Let's see what they do. But I would really, really like to see somebody just stand there and maybe they let Berube say what he really wants. I don't know if he will or not, because that's just something that probably stays behind closed doors. But say something. Say something of substance. Let's see if they do.
All right. So Mark, we're going to close it out. Tell everybody, because Norm wants to read his book, Norma. Tell everybody how they could get your books and what's your next book coming down the pike.
Well, you guys are too kind to me, and I always say this, but it's the truth. You're so kind as to let me talk about my personal work, which I'm retired now, so that's even more important. Yes, I did publish a book 2 years ago. Now time has flown, and it's called Norma. It's just about an old woman who goes through hell to save a town, but saves it through her wit and wisdom. It's kind of a unique story. You can get it anywhere online. Get it even online through Walmart. And the next book's about, it's called Coop. It's about a glove, a Cooper glove that belongs to a minor leaguer in the 1970s who has a coming of age. And the whole story is narrated by the baseball glove, which was an idea suggested to me by a viral disease expert that I spoke to during COVID. He was from California. Anyways, crazy story, crazy book. It's called Coop. It's in front of some publishers now, and I imagine, like I said, they take a while. Could take a month for a response. I got my fingers crossed. I'm not expecting anything there. The publishing world's on its knees, like newspapers and everything else. But if I actually got someone to publish that book, which is a piece of fiction, that would be exceptional because nobody's really taken that type of book on. It's very different. It might stand out and actually get considered and published because of its uniqueness. But as we know, these things are very tough. So I tried, and I'm very proud of it, and any author would be. So thanks for letting me plug those things. And I just really appreciate you guys and your listeners for enduring that. And, we all need a little helping hand. So, thanks again. And if I don't get a chance, it's always awesome to speak to your listeners and have them listen to us. And hopefully it just sparks more comment and more discussion on this important subject of hockey and the Leafs, because we love them in the end. And we'd like to see them win something, after 40 years. I've been in the business. Norm, same thing. Joe, you've been in how long? 30, 35, 40 years too?
Yeah, 34.
Yeah, you'd like to see something positive. We all would. So let's hope it's an important subject, and let's hope what we do here, sparks further critical conversation and thinking, and because it's all good in the end, and we want what's best.
All right, Norm, your final thoughts. Stop washing your socks. Come on.
Yeah, well, final thoughts are expect big changes for next year. And MLSE, for God's sakes, bring back that 67 white jersey with the blue shoulders jersey.
See, this guy's just talking about jerseys. All right, you got players, you got no heart, and the guy worries about jersey. When's the last time you bought a jersey?
Because I don't buy the new jersey because I can relate to the team I grew up with, so that's why I have jerseys from that era. But anyway, I still think they should bring back that 67 jersey. We're coming up to an anniversary. Well, it'll be 27, of course. So why don't you honor that team by bringing back the jersey that they wore, especially the road jersey? I'm assuming that the previous regime, going back to the Harold Ballard days, that maybe the estate has the rights to that jersey, but buy out the rights and let the fans see that jersey that they wore so well, especially in '67. It was a big year. It was Canada's centennial year. So honor that team and its players. They've only got a few surviving members left. I think Dave Keon is one of them. And Mark, you might know another name or two if there are still some. But bring back that '67 jersey, honor that team, and give the fans some good memories. You know, it's not good memories the last couple of years. Give them some memories and give them something to hope for. Yeah. You know, whatever you want to call it, the spirit of '67 or something like that. Bring it back. Come on, MLSE. I'm sure you can buy the rights to the jersey and you'll make a ton of money. As Mark and Joe are pointing out, $500 for a sweater, you'd be surprised. Someone might actually buy the thing. Not surprised. I'm sure they will. The real jersey, not the imitation jersey, but get the real one back on. So that's my closing remarks, trying to find something other than a real downer to vote. So,
right. Norm,
and you can find me here on Fired Up with Joe Monday and Thursday, by the way.
Norm and Mark will be back here to preview the East and West Conference Final. Maple Leafs forever, Leaf Talk, another disappointing season. And if Brendan Shanahan needs a job, he could go to the Toronto Rock. Thanks a lot, guys.
Maple Leafs forever on the Fired Up Network.